So please make sure you get your headsets. In English and French. So if you do not understand English or French, you will need to get a headphone. Okay. Welcome, everybody. If we could have a round of applause for Uncle Shane. Okay, I think we're going to have to begin. So we've got a busy day today. So people are still arriving, so we'll just do the announcements now. So good morning, and I hope those of you who went out this morning managed to dry yourselves. I was just about to walk out the door and it started to rain, and I had second thoughts, so watched it from the balcony. So hoping tomorrow it'll be a brighter morning. So welcome to everybody today. I hope you're all well. It's lovely to see everybody's faces. So before we begin today and you start your journey with us this morning, we've got a few announcements to make. So I am Elizabeth Lasker. You've probably seen me running around. Some of you might have met me in the reception. I am from IofC UK, so if you come to London or Oxford, you might see me around. And if you ever come to Oxford, you are welcome to come and have a cup of tea. Yes, I don't know how I will manage with 150 people turning up for tea, but I'll try. So our announcements for today. So if you haven't joined any community group yet, after the plenary, if you could please go up to the main reception area, there will be a table there, and somebody will help you join a community group. So please do that, because they're very important as part of the journey going forward. So also with workshops, if you haven't signed up for any workshops today, or you are just feeling a bit lost, please go down one here, and there is a beautiful team there that will help you, and they will talk through it. And there's also some printed timetables there for you if you are having issues with the app as well. So there is a team to help you now. At any point, if you feel you can't find anybody, you'll see people with some green lanyards. Just grab them, and they will help you as best as they can. I also wanted to make the point that today, really, we had a beginning and introduction yesterday, but today we're really kind of going deeper into the journey. So at any point, if you feel tender or you feel like you need to step out, we have people with us that can sit with you. So just make yourself known, speak to somebody with a green lanyard, and they will put you in touch with the right person. But your community group space is also there for you to just connect with people and just share where you're at the moment. So there are people around to help you, and it's okay to step out. We're here to support and care for you along the way. So I'm going to get my little book out to make sure I say everything. There are some artists, I think, here. Some singers, some dancers, some pianists, some guitar players. On Friday, there's going to be an event where people can do performances. So Nuria is here somewhere. Can you stand up, Nuria? Is Nuria here? Could you come forward a little bit so we can see you? So if you would like, we'll make this announcement tomorrow as well, but if you would like to play something, Nuria, there she is, just please grab Nuria. And Marta. Marta, do you want to stand up, give a wave? Please get hold of them, give them your name, and they'll take your details, and we'll see you on Friday. So just a quick, gentle reminder about photography. This is a beautiful place. And it's an exciting place to be, and it's a place that we want to keep in our memories. And we're using our we're using our cameras and our sort of phones and our computers to take pictures. I just would like for you to be mindful that not everybody wants to be in your picture. So as you're taking photographs, if you're taking it in confined spaces, just gently ask the person next to you or behind you, is it okay? And especially just being mindful that people with red lanyards, they've expressed that they absolutely do not want to be in any picture. So please be mindful of that as you're going around the house. We want you to take photographs. We want you to keep good memories. But I don't think a lot of people, you might have people photobombing you in the back as well, but anyway. So the course of the day today is, after the plenary, we'll have community groups straight after this. Then there'll be lunch, workshops, a tea break, and if any of you didn't get the cake yesterday, it's tea downstairs, and then if you just go out onto the terrace, you'll get cake there as well. And then there's workshops again, an evening meal, and then we've got the evening event. So it's another beautifully packed day for you. And during the tea break, there will be some music outside. So Uncle Shane will be playing the didgeridoo again to promote the film, but we'll give you some more information about that later as well. Okay. So before I invite our Dr. Chateau-Gill to speak and introduce our guest today, I would just like to bring us into a space of silence. Oh, Sven. Yeah. Forgot about Sven. So Sven, can I please invite Sven, because we've got an announcement to make as well. Thank you very much, Sven. Okay.
So, I believe the future of the world is in arts, partially, to make a new narrative. So we are here, me and Katarina Tretiakova and Polina Kuznetsova from Ukraine, painter and photographer, and we're making an arts installation in the theater. That'll be on and off a bit. We'll start in today at 1:30 and be ongoing through the afternoon. You will see that it's happening when there's a sign saying home ? Outside. It'll be a space to come into, to feel safe and to engage with the question, what is a home? That's why we put a question mark behind it, because we all have experiences of a home. Some is taken away, some have to flee, come back. What is home to you? So this is a space to come into, and in your own space or engaging with us there or afterwards, engage with this question. So feel free to come in there if you have time after lunch or if you don't have a workshop. If it says home, please come in.
Thank you very much, Sven. I'm glad he stopped me because I've got something very important here. So yesterday, those of you who were in here, we sort of did a lovely exercise where you all spoke to each other, but it was very difficult to catch your attention afterwards because you really loved talking to each other. So I brought a little something along. So this is what we're going to hear. So there are going to be points throughout the plenary where we're going to have discussion. So I will do these bells to encourage you to come back into the space so that we can continue and continue with the journey. These are very special bells. I run Creators of Peace circles. Some of you know Creators of Peace. These are regularly used as a kind invitation to get people just to center and refocus into the room. So please just watch out for that little ting. So, we've got a little Mentimeter. Remember when we did the exercise with the Mentimeter, where you had to use your phones? So if you could kindly get your phones out. And if you are sitting next to somebody who is not familiar with this or looks like they need a little bit of help, please do. So we've got a question for today to begin us off. What quality is most important to you as a healer or change maker? The question is, what quality is most important to you as a healer or change maker? So you can either scan that QR code with your phone, or you pop in www.menti.com, and right at the top of that web page is going to be a little gap saying voting code. Just stick in that voting code. 5448-3076. So we'll give a little bit of time for you to get that, and then, okay, so www.menti.com, 5448-3076. Okay, I can see some people writing. Wonderful. Can you flash up the live cloud, please? Here we go. Oh, here we go. Okay, we've got listening. So the way this works is that the more people put in the same word, the larger the word is. Okay? So at the moment, we've got compassion, listening, and empathy. That's the majority of the traits that people are putting down. We've also got humility, love, patience. Creativity, determination, change. Love is coming up, humility, okay. So you can see some of these getting bigger, the words. Vulnerability. We will be taking a PDF of this and we will put it on the app and also on the social media so you can read this in full detail. Wonderful. Thank you very much for participating in that. So we'll be doing a few more of those as the week goes on. But for now, I'd like to invite us into at least a minute's silence. It's very much a tradition of IofC UK, well, IofC International. I'm used to saying IofC UK because I'm always in the UK. So I'd like to leave you with a quote, because sometimes it's quite hard for people to sit in a silent space. Sometimes it's nice to have a quote or something to focus on. So as I bring you into silence, you might want to have focus on a particular point in the room. It might be the flowers. You might want to close your eyes for a minute. You might want to look out of the window, or you might want to rest with the quote that I'm just about to share. Some of you may know this quote. The wound is the place where the light enters you. And that's from Rumi. So let us just take a minute of silence, just to pause, leave our mourning to one side, any thoughts we'll leave to one side, and really come and be present in the space as we invite the speakers to come up. So I'll bring you back in 1 minute, and then I will invite our moderator up. Thank you very much. Welcome back. So I will begin with inviting our moderator up. Sherto is the coordinator of UNESCO Collective Healing Initiative. She's also a professor at the University of Wales. So welcome to Sherto Girl, who will take the stand now and give an introduction to our speakers.
Good morning, you beautiful people. I hope you're feeling open and energized for such a morning. I've always feel it's a privilege to come to Caux, to participate Caux Forum. For me, the reason is the people here are so beautiful, in a beautiful setting. You look beautiful in such a good setting. So I have been a friend of IofC for many years, and now I'm also part of the Creators' Peace movement. Over time, I came to realize why stories and dialogue are always at the core of this movement. I think the stories and dialogue are here for us to understand better. Well, Albert Einstein talked about peace. He said, peace cannot be kept by force, and peace can only be achieved through understanding. So IofC living Einstein's advice. So may the spirit of the mountains here bless this session with the power of listening, the openness of dialogue, richness of story, and above all, the depth of understanding. Now, yesterday, some of our young people talked about the magic of stories they experienced through the UNESCO intergenerational dialogue process. So one of the stories I have treasured in that process was told by an African-American elder. So I want to share it with you. Here it goes. He said, when I was a child, there was only once I overheard my grandmother talking about slavery and the brutality she had experienced of being enslaved. It sounded so unimaginably harrowing that I couldn't help but cried out, but why did you have to endure it? Grandmother took a long look at me and said slowly but firmly, because I knew you were coming. Today we're here because we are mindful of those who are coming, the many generations ahead of us, the many generations who are yet to be born. I call this anticipated remembering. That is to how we want ourselves to be remembered by those who are to come. So no wonder Jonas Salk, you probably know, he was known for his work in developing the polio vaccine. He has pleaded, please, please, please remember that humanity's greatest responsibility is to be good ancestors. Not to be good ancestors, we must engage in collective healing, in peace creation, and change making. And so this plenary is devoted to this question, as you see there. What qualities are needed for those who aspire to become healers, peace creators, and change makers? And we are most honored to have the presence of three most outstanding global leaders who will help us explore these qualities. May I invite our leaders to come to the stage. First, please, Professor Gerald Pillay. And then Mr. François Xavier Priolo. And Mr. Louis Cardinal. I will not read out their bios because you could read it yourself, and the many excellent accolades they have received. Now, we're going to take turn, our speakers are going to take turn to share their thought on these qualities. And afterwards, we'll follow up with some questions, and then we extend this dialogue to you. So we hope this session is interactive and dialogic, and thank you for your presence too.
Well, good morning, everybody. I first came to Caux when apartheid in South Africa had just collapsed. Mr. Mandela Mr. Mandela was released in 1990, and we were preparing for the first democratic elections and for what we hoped would be the new South Africa. And two academics from either side of the colour fence were invited. I, from Pretoria, and the University of South Africa then, and a white colleague from the University of Stellenbosch, a political scientist. And we were invited to speak about our experience from either side of the struggle. I must admit, my friends, I frankly can't remember what I said, or even what my colleagues said. We probably described the terrible experience of trying to force peace upon a country by separating its people, and the false understanding that if you can stop people from fighting, then you have peace. That's a great delusion, that if when we are not fighting, we are at peace. Apartheid, as you know, comes from a Dutch word meaning separateness. But something here, when I came, made an indelible impression on me, and I wonder whether you can guess what that was. It wasn't the speeches, it wasn't the sessions, it wasn't all the workshops, and all of them were great. But what made an impression on me as a young academic going back to South Africa was this wish by the MRA colleagues I met. It was MRA at the time, before it became Initiatives of Change. This sense and this goal to be honest brokers, that struck me as a fundamentally, refreshingly new idea. People who can stand in the breach, people who literally mind the gap. An honest broker's intercession is really without any ulterior motive, with nothing to gain, except to bring healing and reconciliation. Now tell me, my friends, who in our world can be trusted to do this? Not governments, we know that. Not for-profit institutions that calculate profit. Not lawyers, certainly, who we call in to sort out our mess. Or consultants who we pay a lot of money to tell us what we intuitively know. And then we get the bill afterwards. Who can we trust in the public square who will keep our confidences, protect our vulnerability, rejoice with those that rejoice, and weep with those that weep? Who can we trust? And so my first suggestion is that we aspire, if we're going to be healers, to be honest brokers, deeply in the DNA of Initiatives of Change. What a noble calling it is to be an honest broker. My second suggestion is that we can't be peacemakers if we are not at peace. Peace, as I said, is not the absence of war. If we are not fighting, it does not mean we are at peace. We cannot heal and reconcile others if we are burdened with our own hurts, our own guilts, and our own failures. For our founders, this meant being at peace with God, to live with a clear conscience, where there's a need to say sorry for things we know we shouldn't have done or said or thought. To go and fix that first, so that we are at peace with ourselves. There is a text in Scripture which says that when you bring your gift to the altar to give this to God, and you realize that you have aught against your brother or sister, leave the gift, go and make right, and then come back and make your offering. Otherwise, the offering is useless. Being at peace with God, with your conscience, is what Gandhi said. Turn the searchlight inward. You know how easy it is to see the faults of other people because we turn the searchlight outwards all the time, making judgments, sometimes too quickly, too hastily. But turning the searchlight inwards means that we examine our deepest motives for why we do things. The human heart, my friends, is furtive. Motives are hidden. The human heart is often defensive. It's prone to rationalize our own faults in order to keep up appearances. And that is why when Frank Bookman and his friends started what was then called the Oxford Group, they began with the discipline of quiet time to listen intently to the inner voice, which goes beyond reasoning and thinking our own thoughts. A Hindu Swami said that if we're thinking our own thoughts and we think that mindfulness is all we need, it's like our minds are like monkeys jumping from tree to tree. You know how hard it is to be quiet. And when we try to be quiet, our minds jump, don't they? So difficult, so simple, but yet so difficult. It is silence and contemplation and asking for guidance at the beginning of each day and during the day that we become aware that we are being actually guided, that we are not our own, we are bought with a price. And with that follows inner peace and a sense of purpose. And that purpose, my friends, passeth all understanding. In this context, you should ask yourself, or we should ask myself, why is it more difficult to bring peace in our own homes and between the people we love and the people we know? And I suspect that one of the answers is that because they know us too well, and they know that we don't practice what we preach. And that's why it's easier to work with strangers who don't know us. Gandhi, there's a story about Gandhi who heard that a Hindu had killed a Muslim in the terrible struggles in India, and he went into a fast unto death. Political scientists don't make sense of Gandhi because they want political theory. But his was like ours, a pilgrimage, a walk, a journey, a daily journey. And he heard that somebody had killed. And so he went into a fast unto death until the culprit pitched up and said, Gandhiji, you must stop this. I did this. I'm sorry. And he stopped his fasting, and then he said to the Hindu, I will stop on one condition, that you find a child and raise that child as your child, but see that the child is a Muslim child. What was Gandhi trying to do? You can't rationalize this. You've got to live this. And we may have wonderful academic ideas and techniques in peace building and bridge building and peacemaking. We may have even gone for training, or we may ourselves be a trainer. But may I make my third suggestion? And simply this, that if these values are not translated into the way we live, then they are not worth the paper they're written on. Throw away the manuals. In the Christian religion, we have this notion of incarnation. The Logos was with God, the Logos was God, the Word was God. But John makes this extraordinary claim, and the Logos was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory full of grace and truth. The Word that was in the beginning was made flesh, enfleshed, became incarnated. And that is a model we can use about all our values and all these wonderful techniques. If they're not enfleshed and made living, made body and blood, and embodied in the real life, It means absolutely nothing. My suggestion is simply this, that we can't possibly preach what we ourselves do not practice. Very early on in this movement, there was a commitment to 4 important things, absolutely, unconditionally. And they were the commitment to be unselfish, to love unconditionally, to have purity of heart and motive, and to be honest in word and deed. Those 4 fundamentals, our founders had grasped the guts of things. And if we practice that, they said, we have what it is to change the world. And so, my friends, my final thought is simply that activism without love is soul-destroying. And love without action is just a platitude. Gandhi said that if you get the justice you want and fight for a cause and you are an activist for it and you get it, it's only half. It's only half the victory. You only have won when not only you've got the justice you wanted, but you turned the friend into an enemy, or rather you turned your enemy into your friend. And then we've got what we're seeking for. Get the justice we want, but turn your enemy into a friend. And that's the work of unconditional love. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous, je suis François-Xavier Priolo. Je vais m'exprimer en français. Je suis vice-président de la région Normandie et je voudrais tout d'abord vous remercier très chaleureusement de m'avoir invité à venir m'exprimer ici pour parler de ce sujet ô combien important des bâtisseurs de paix. Et c'est vrai que depuis hier, j'ai rencontré beaucoup de femmes et d'hommes engagés pour changer le monde avec cette bienveillance, cette ouverture, ce mélange de près de 100 pays différents. Et on sait que la paix durable, on ne la réussira que si on se comprend mutuellement, si on s'écoute, c'était le mot qui est ressorti tout à l'heure, l'écoute, pour bâtir un futur durable. Alors je vais repartir de ce qu'a dit Gérald Pilet à l'instant, quand vous avez dit « les valeurs ne valent rien si elles ne sont pas incarnées ». Eh bien, on est sur un échange autour des qualités pour pacifier les relations entre les êtres humains, entre les États. Moi, je vais essayer de vous parler des qualités d'un territoire pour prendre toute sa part à la construction de cette paix durable. Ce territoire, c'est celui où je suis élu, en Normandie, dans l'ouest de la France. Et c'est un territoire qui a été marqué par la guerre, par la Deuxième Guerre mondiale notamment, et qui a vécu le débarquement allié de 1944. On célébrera dans moins d'un an le 80e anniversaire de ce débarquement allié. Je suis élu en Normandie, je suis aussi le maire d'une ville de 20 000 habitants en Normandie. Cette ville s'appelle Louviers, à une centaine de kilomètres de Paris et à 120 kilomètres, 130 kilomètres des plages du débarquement. Et comme maire de ma ville, j'ai été élu la première fois en 2014, je fais très régulièrement des commémorations patriotiques. Hier, on a évoqué le sujet de guérir les blessures du passé. Chaque année, comme maire de ma ville, je préside une douzaine de commémorations. Et à un moment, j'en ai eu marre. J'en ai eu marre parce qu'on fait de la commémoration automatique, mécanique, sans plus rien comprendre. On a toujours les mêmes personnes en face de soi. On est satisfait parce qu'on a coché la case de la commémoration. Et je suis très attaché au devoir de mémoire, mais le devoir de mémoire seul ne suffit plus. Et j'ai souhaité, quand j'ai été élu à la région Normandie, prendre une initiative que j'ai proposée au président de la région, qui est de se dire que pour remercier ceux qui nous ont libérés du nazisme en 1945, il ne fallait pas seulement commémorer et dire merci, mais la plus belle façon de les remercier, c'était de s'engager à comprendre le temps présent pour bâtir un avenir durable. Et il fallait faire ce lien entre le passé, le présent et l'avenir. Et c'est là que j'ai essayé d'imaginer les qualités d'un territoire pour porter ce message de paix et en tout cas de contribution à la paix. Et je dirais qu'il y a 3 valeurs. La première valeur, c'est la fidélité à son passé. La deuxième valeur, c'est la volonté de transmettre, de partager, et c'est bien un endroit ici à Caux où on est dans le partage, dans la volonté de dialogue et d'échange, et en particulier pour la région Normandie qui est compétente pour l'éducation, les lycées, la volonté de transmettre à la jeune génération, mais pas avec des mots, avec des choses très concrètes. Et puis enfin, c'est la responsabilité. Et la responsabilité, c'est d'avoir une vision de l'avenir, cet avenir autour de valeurs, le multilatéralisme, notre capacité à prévenir des risques existentiels pour l'humanité et surtout à s'impliquer, à se sentir concerné. Autour de ces 3 valeurs, j'ai proposé la création d'un forum mondial pour la paix qui s'appelle le Forum mondial Normandie pour la paix, qui se tient tous les ans depuis maintenant 6 ans et qui veut promouvoir une vision un peu différente de ces sujets. On dit toujours la Normandie est connue dans le monde entier pour les valeurs de paix et de liberté qu'elle incarne. Alors oui, elle les incarne, mais elle les incarne par son histoire. Moi, j'ai souhaité qu'elle les incarne par son action présente. Et j'ai estimé qu'il fallait aussi réfléchir à un nouveau rendez-vous à l'agenda international autour de ces sujets de paix et de sécurité internationale, au même titre.
Whilst we are here today, there are also lots of things we talk about with climate change too. And there are lots of many different economic challenges too. There is a multitude of initiatives on peace. But this is always just diplomats, just non-governmental organisations. And we are always just taking this subject and just scratching the surface. We need to break down the walls. We need to open this up. We need to make sure that international organisations no longer have the monopoly of peace. This needs to be something that we can do ourselves. Our very first meeting was held in 2018 in Caux. This was the headquarters of the Normandy region. This was a very inspiring place for us to talk about peace, to talk about moving forwards, and slowly but surely, with time, our forum was able to make a difference. We had many different discussions about conflicts. But the thing that we really needed to do was to involve young people. We needed to explain to them and make sure that they were aware of what they can do. So I've got a little video here that's 2 minutes long that I would like to show you what it's about. «
Le mur coupe, ce qui permet aux humains de se comprendre entre eux.
Qu'aucun mur n'est infranchissable. Aucun mur, même celui qu'on avait cru le plus éternel.
C'est la démocratie qui est le plus grand protecteur de la paix. Parce qu'en vérité, quand on a de la démocratie, c'est le peuple qui, au bout du compte, décide de son avenir.
J'ai assisté au concert aussi qui était très chouette. J'ai eu le temps de voir toutes les expos un peu sur le site entre midi et 2. Et là, je ressors de la conférence sur la Russie et l'Ukraine qui était très intéressante.
On est venu ici aussi pour le côté familial. C'est vrai qu'il y a des conférences pour les adultes, mais on aime bien cette approche également pour les enfants. Et ce qu'on apprécie aussi, c'est que ce soit accessible à tout le monde.
Sur le thème de la paix, c'est vrai que c'était intéressant et puis ça laisse libre cours à l'imagination des enfants.
Nothing worse when everyone has indifferences. If we cannot take on solutions for tomorrow, then we will not be able to move forwards. This is our third value, which is of responsibility, and I'm going to finish on this point. Normandy is not just a forum, it's a programme that goes on during the whole year. It's not just in Normandy, it could potentially be around the world too. There are four big axes. We want people to feel free. We are going to help organisations that are fighting for the peace. We are doing lots to help young people as well, to try and give them the educational materials and rights that they need to understand peace. So this is our idea. We would like to create a huge library with audiovisuals, films and books for young people. We have also created with the European Parliament actions which are going to try and help us prevent potential conflicts. We want to see if there is a country in the world which we could try and prevent falling into conflict. We would like to welcome mediation meetings. We would like to bring people together in Normandy. We would like to help people find reconciliation. We need to look further into our science and culture because this is the best way to educate people. And then finally, the idea of responsibility. We actually wrote a manifest, Normandy for Peace. There were many people from around the world who contributed with this, people from America and from Congo, just to name a few. You can find this on our website, Normandie pour la paix, Normandy for Peace. The way that we are trying to fight for peace is all explained on there. There is also another quick video that's 2 minutes long that's going to explain to you what our...
L'enjeu est quand même considérable de réfléchir sur la paix. Que la région Normandie se soit éveillée à l'idée de faire quelque chose pour la paix, déjà la place au-dessus, ou en tous les cas à part des autres. C'est un élément extrêmement positif. Ça fait presque un an qu'on travaille dessus. J'ai été curieux de savoir le résultat, s'il allait être consistant ou pas. Il a de ce point de vue déjà dépassé mes espérances. Il y a énormément de monde. La paix, de manière dramatique, était une coquille vide dans la réflexion, c'est-à-dire c'était la non-guerre. Là, on essaye d'aller un petit peu plus loin, vers deux sentiers qui sont difficiles. D'abord, que peut être la paix positive, c'est-à-dire définie autrement que comme l'absence de guerre, et d'autre part, quels sont les chemins nouveaux. La guerre, dans notre histoire européenne, avait quelque chose de très très particulier. C'était un jeu clos entre États et entre puissants. Aujourd'hui, la guerre, c'est devenu l'inverse. C'est pas un jeu clos, c'est un jeu qui est ouvert aux sociétés. C'est ça qui est terrible. Il y a de plus en plus de victimes civiles dans les conflits modernes. Ce n'est plus en Europe. L'Europe n'est plus le champ de bataille du monde. Deuxième changement et deuxième différence. Et c'est davantage les logiques de faiblesse que les logiques de puissance qui enclenchent la guerre. Autrefois, on faisait la guerre pour montrer ses muscles. Aujourd'hui, on fait la guerre parce qu'on n'a pas de muscles. Et c'est donc un changement de problématique, donc ça sera un changement de recette. Sinon, ça sera l'échec.
Actually, people turn to war when there is weakness, when they don't have any muscles at all. So I would like to invite you to our next forum, Normandie pour Paix, the 28th and 29th of September in Caux. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Oh, that's in Canada, sorry. Good morning. My name is Louis Cardinal. I am Woodland Cree from northern Alberta. We are a nation of people that make the boreal forests of northern Canada our homes, those very forests that have been covering North America with smoke since this spring started. So I want to extend my heart to those of you and your relatives and your relations that are being affected by these fires, not only in North America, but around the world as well. Before I get to my formal remarks, I want to acknowledge a few things first. And that is, 50 years ago this week, my father, Don Cardinal, was here. He was invited by then called MRA to speak and to share the messages of our ancestors for peace, for harmony, and for respect amongst all human beings. My sister Rainbow is here with me today, and a contingent of Canadian Indigenous people are here today, and we bring that same message once again at a time that our world is being affected in relationships with each other, and relationships with Mother Earth that need work. I find it appropriate that the question today is about the qualities that we see or we wish to see, for aspiring healers and change makers. So what I want to present is those four qualities of healing and change-making leadership from a Woodland Cree perspective as applied to today. But first, the name Cree isn't a name that we call ourselves. It was applied to us by others. The name we call ourselves is Nehiawak, or the people, or Nehiaw, an individual. The philosophy behind the name Nehiaw derives from the root word in our language, meaning Niwu, meaning the number 4. It's an interesting parallel to what Dr. Pillay was sharing with us this morning. It's understood, therefore, that we are beings of 4 parts. The mind, also known as the intellect, the body, the physical, the emotions, relationships, and the spirit, or the soul. All 4 of these parts are expressed as a circle that is then in equal quadrants within that circle. Those 4 parts, mind, body, emotion, and spirit, must be kept in balance with one another. The focus on one part more than focusing on others leads to imbalance and dysfunction. Acquiring inner balance is the first step in creating change in the world. As the knowledge keepers of my people have taught me, they said, when a person achieves balance of those 4 parts, we then become human beings. So for the mind, a person must continuously feed the mind with knowledge and information to better prepare themselves with options to meet challenges for themselves and for others. They understand that the amount of freedom you have is directly linked to the access of more and varied choices. A leader knows that lifelong learning is a part of daily living and personal growth. By expanding one's knowledge base, one increases the chances for success. For the body, a healer or change maker knows that physical health is kept in balance by what we put into our body and how we keep our body in good health to undertake the duties and the roles the family and community needs us to perform. A leader knows that families and communities also need access to healthy food, activity, and health care. A healthy leader strives to build a healthy community. For emotions, your relationships need to be healthy and in good order. First, with the relationship to oneself, then the ones that are closest to your heart, then to the extended family, and then outward to your community, and then outward in widening circles. That includes the nation, Mother Earth, and the spirit world. To be a good change maker or healer, you must work to heal broken or disconnected relationships in your life and put them back into good relations. And for spirit, there's an old proverb that says, we are spirit beings having a human experience. Our spirit or our soul needs to be nourished by ceremony and prayer as a way on a daily, monthly, and seasonal care. Our spirit needs ceremony and prayer for its well-being by connecting it to the great mystery some call God, connecting the spirit to Mother Earth and to the ancestors. A change maker or healer knows access to opportunities for spiritual care is paramount for personal and community wholeness. So my response to the question, what qualities are needed by those who aspire to be healers and change makers, is this. We'll see those qualities through their actions, not their words. We'll know these change-making and healing leaders by their pursuit and practice of knowledge, health, and healthiness, their vigilance to relationships, and their recognition of spirit and connectedness. And they will pursue these things, not for themselves, but for others. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank you for your deep listening. Because of your deep listening, we hear these people out. We hear the wisdom, we hear the gifts of their understanding of the qualities. Thank you very much. My task is to keep the dialogue moving forward. So here's something that we can all contemplate upon, and maybe each of you can briefly respond. This forum is entitled Healing the Wounds of the Past. I don't know where Alan Charles is, but for the majority of us, we just had the conversation yesterday. The wounds are fresh, raw. It's here with us. The anguish, heart-wrenching. The hope for many of us is actually quite dim. Now, so yesterday, the speakers together, they were condemning dehumanization. However, for us, we need to remember that dehumanizing acts, such as racism, discrimination, oppression, exploitation, is not always conscious, explicit, or readily visible because it is at the same time systemic and structural, often pervasively and deeply embedded in the practice of institutions, laws, those policies, written or unwritten, and also entrenched in our beliefs and ideologies. It's these things that perpetuate the legacy of the wounding. So, as we heard from the speakers, a major symptom of that collective wounding and also transgenerationally transmitted trauma is separation. Our body is separated into parts. Our own awareness, talk about relationship, is divorced from our embodied lived experience in this world. And each person is separate from the other. We became indifferent to each other's experience. And we are alienated from the natural world, which we're supposed to be a part, but also from the sacred beings that we're all constituted. So the harm is not just physical, not just relational, not just material, it is also spiritual. So could I ask our speakers here and also yourselves to contemplate on, so when we talk about these qualities, these values, and so on, when you, in your experience of creating a culture for peace, in an institution such as a university, or in a transnational organization such as IofC that has offices in 50 countries, or Normandy as a region, but also in the global indigenous communities. Now, how these qualities and these values actually can help initiate that process of systemic transformation so that the wounding has stopped. So this is the question, and I will invite our speakers to briefly touch upon them, and then we'll invite you to also contemplate that together as a group.
Merci. Juste
Thank you. Just an element of response. I think that it changes that for us to go further than the system is to have personal relationships. It's when you meet people who have the same willpower to fight for the same thing. There is no point in having huge politicians if we don't have people who are going to put in place ideas. We need to move away from the normal framework. When I'm talking about Normandy and the president of the region that I worked with when he was the Minister of Defence in France, when we were elected, we said we need to do something that's going to change things. We don't just need to manage the current situation, we need to actually make changes. And to be very honest, nobody believed in us at the beginning. Yes, over a number of years, slowly but surely, progressively, we have been able to build something concrete, but this has all been thanks to communication. Beforehand, I only ever had people around me who would always just say, yes, we will help you. I think that even the General Secretary of the European Parliament said, yes, we will help you. But it was him who helped me get meetings with other people. And this was because the European Union actually received the Nobel Peace Prize. This was for their efforts for sustainable development and for peace. But I went to him and I said to him, something is missing. There is no annual report on the contributions of European politicians for peace. The meeting lasted 15 minutes and he said, okay, let's go. We are not going to pass by all of the different institutions because otherwise nothing will get done. We're actually going to do something now about this. And what actually made this possible was the fact that we had human relationships, that we all wanted the same thing, and then after that, other people followed us. We were able to make advancements with policies. You need to be inventive, and this is something that I have learnt. Thank you.
Change is the constant in nature. It is inevitable. It's a matter of time, it's a matter of effort, it's a matter of vision. And when we, as human beings, as my colleague was explaining, having those human relationships begins that process of change. And our traditions, and most traditions of indigenous people in North America, recognize that it's all about relationships. That can never be underestimated. I have seen amazing changes made when people come together and begin speaking from the heart. You will be amazed at how much more we have in common, regardless of where you come from, to make the changes that we see is needed for a better world, a better place, or to challenge the status quo that is no longer serving our needs as human beings. But it takes time. And it always starts first with reaching out in your hands to another, sharing your story. Because when you share your story, you start to see yourself as the other person shares their story, you see yourself in their story. When you begin that process of recognizing yourself in another person, that begins that first thread that, when pulled upon, is the beginning of building a bridge. But it takes time. In our city of Edmonton, we've made huge strides. There still is a lot more work to do, of course, but we did it by going to the people and talking with them and saying, what are your concerns? What are your issues? And it was amazing to see how non-Indigenous people and Indigenous people actually came to the same conclusion in their own way. And we said, collectively with one voice, we said, we can make this change. And by that experience, I learned one very important lesson in life. And that is, when the people lead, the leaders follow. And suddenly, our political leaders wanted to be in on the conversation. And we graciously invited them in. And we had to teach them how to listen. But because of that, the change started to happen. And now we're seeing ourselves in our own city reflected through, for example, the very first urban Indigenous ceremonial site designated for that purpose of doing ceremony and prayer. It happened when people said it couldn't. But trust comes from the heart, and when you speak that honesty, change is possible.
Our chair is asking us, if I understand the question, how can our concern about personal change affect institutions? And of course, I headed a university for the last 20 years before stepping down to do this work. Institutions are self-serving, whether they educational or social or even religious, they're self-serving. They create their own bureaucracies, and the bureaucracies feeds on itself. And systems become such that in serving themselves, they can easily lose their purpose. A good university is not because it has a wonderful president or it has wonderful management. You can be well managed but mediocre. And do you want to be a well-managed, mediocre institution, or would you like to be a less well-managed but excellent institution? I think the choice is very clear. Situations like the universities are also full of people, very, very bright, and full of themselves. Unbounded egos, presidents and everybody. And the first thing, if we're talking about personal change, is how for us then to try to translate what is true for us into what is true for the institution. How to turn an institution into a living organism. And to ask its first purpose. A university is known because of good scholarship and because of forming graduates who will make a difference. That's the only two reasons a university will become famous or known or people want to be at it. It's not known for anything else. Everything else is supportive. So the Vice-Chancellor and all the bureaucracy and all the administrators need to understand that we are servants to a bigger purpose, and that is sound academics. Now that's true for the IofC. It's true for all organizations. It's true for a city. It's true for governments. Cut the bureaucracy. Cut the red tape. Collegium, the Latin word I referred to yesterday, where we get college from, and collegiality. Collegium means fellowship in Latin. That's all it means, fellowship. And if we can have living fellowships, then we refine our purpose. And that is why it came to me very early on, Chair, that it's not just about fancy buildings and getting research done. All that's very important. I spent as much time with the gardeners as I spent with my deans. because getting the gardens right, and your emphasis on art, getting the context right, so that the human spirit flourishes, that's what creates fellowship. And I think if fellowship means people, we must put, as you say, Lewis, people at the heart of institutions and get rid of all the red tape that hamstrings us, doesn't it? And get back to fellowship.
If we have time, we would have asked a second question, which is about the place of art in peace building, in transforming systems. But for now, I think in the IofC rituals, it's a song. And also for you to take a break, and then we come back with a more intense dialogue.
So if the singers could make their way up. Fantastic.
So this is a song written by Kathleen Johnson, and it does talk about qualities, practices, what is needed to bring healing change. What is the water needed for a thirsty land, and who will bring it?
Water for a thirsty land, cool water, who'll bring water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land. The world is like a desert where the land is parched and dry, and people burn with a thirst for things that just don't satisfy. Water for a thirsty land, cool water, who'll bring water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land. And millions drink from the rivers of hate that seem so swift and sure. They burn with a mighty passion that can never bring a cure. Water for a thirsty land, cool water, who'll bring water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land. There is a stream of water that will fill and satisfy. It comes to you as you give it away, and it never, never runs dry. Water for a thirsty land, cool water, who'll bring water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land. I've counted all my treasures and the things I long to do. I'll gladly give the best I have till the world has a purpose new. Water for a thirsty land, cool water, who'll bring water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land, water for a thirsty land.
Thank you so much for the beautiful, beautiful chorus. We now going to skip one step and go into interaction with the audience immediately because we were told we have another 10 minutes. We must end the session at 10:02. So those of you have with a timer or with a clock, please signal to me at 1 minute to 50. I have to stop because otherwise I have to keep looking at my phone. Now, it's your chance to have a dialogue with our wonderful speakers here. And just like, let's see, show of hand, who would like to have a direct dialogue? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. We start with these 4, and I will start with these 4, and I will use the location as a reference so that so that Tyler doesn't have to run all the way each round. We start from here, and the second row. Could you briefly state your name and your question, and also to whom your question is directed?
Andrew Stalybrough, Switzerland, Caux. My question is for Mr. Cardinal. What did he give his guests, the other speakers? What was the object that he handed on, and what did he say to them?
Well,
if that's not too private.
No, not at all. I was going to make fun of you and say, well, it's a very secret thing, and you have to be initiated. No, what I've presented here is, it's called a braided sweetgrass. And this is made from a wild grass that grows abundantly in North America. And it is, there are 3 strands that are then woven together. The mind, the body, and the spirit that brings us together. And so this is a medicine. And I was acknowledging the work that they do is medicine. And so I wanted to, as a healer and change maker, I wanted to honor them with medicine for the work that they've done. So that's why we presented this.
We'll have a second hand there next to row down. Okay, you. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess...
Briefly your name and your question, and to whom your question is directed to.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ishmael Musa. I come from the UK. And my question is directed to Mr. Francois. I guess it's also relevant to Gerald. But first of all, congratulations for the work that you're doing. And also, it's good to see specifically France coming on board with different peace initiatives. The Paris, a new initiative. I guess this would probably change the tone of the discussion, but also it's important because I feel like in the conversation that we have, we're very idealistic when we speak about peace and the change that we want to see in the world. But one of the things that I want to maybe ask you is the political will and the disparity of the economic disparity that we see in the world. I think it's a very debilitating for many communities around the world. And it's not of the problems that they created, but also of the problems that has been imposed in a very systematic manner. And if we want to see change in the world, I think also we have to push for political will around the world. And I think France is one of the countries that has still presence, colonial presence, especially in Africa in the north and the sub-Saharan region. So yourself, as a deputy mayor or mayor, I believe, and other leaders in France, what do you think can be done, and how far can we go to create that political will, primarily in the Western world and primarily in Europe? Because Europe has a lot to do with the problems that we see, especially in Africa. Thank you.
That's quite a large question. I think I need about 2 hours to respond to that. But what you said is at the heart of the subject. There are a multitude of causes and consequences for peace. if the deep-rooted causes are not regulated, then many things will change. So Europe has tried to make a change with a vision of multilateralism, which has been completely reformed today. But our forum is there to promote a multilateral vision, not just in Europe, but across the world. And this takes us back to what you said earlier about universities and institutions. There is one country, Madagascar, which today is a country with a lot of poverty and finds itself in a lot of difficulties. And there is a lot less help in Madagascar today than there was in the 70s, despite the fact that we have had a lot of development. I went there 1 year ago and we brought a lot with us, a lot of financial means, a lot of engineering means. But the Madagascan government was in their own moment of change. Our cooperation in our region with them, we saw that we were actually spending a lot of money without looking at the objectives, which is social development, economic development. Today there are a lot of other influences around the world for Madagascar which could destabilise it, such as China and Russia, but we need to focus on the social and economic point. So what did we do last year when I went to Madagascar? Well, I'd like to talk to you about how we had meetings with people. We tried to develop a cooperation, and within 1 week I already met the boss of the United Nations for Madagascar. At the end of our time there, the boss told us that he had really reflected about what we needed and that there were many different elements that needed to come together. The government of the region, our government in Normandy, but also the Institution for Human Rights and Peace, which is in Normandy too, has also helped a lot with the situation in Madagascar. We signed an agreement that said that we were going to cooperate with Madagascar, with the United Nations, and we all came together and decided on each of our objectives collectively. This was just a small thing, but it really contributed to bring results, and we were able to make changes. We must never stop questioning where we are putting our money and for what causes we are funding. Thank you.
Based on that thought, I would like to connect Wales with Normandy. Wales is the only country in the world that dedicated to the well-being of future generations, and the well-being of future generations in expression of peace. So I'm expressing a purest intention to connect with Normandy in Wales. We can continue that conversation, please. Now, we have another question.
Thank you so much for what you shared this morning. Merci, Monsieur.
Assad, please, who you are and who you are and
I'm Assad Cheftari from Lebanon. My question is the following. You mainly spoke in a positive environment, you know, and everything was positive in what you said, and I was very happy to hear it. But we, most of us work in a resilient environment, you know. So what are, according to the three of you, the qualities to be able to overcome resistance to change? Thank you.
I'm not quite sure whether you mean resistance by the system to change. Just explain that a little bit when you say.
What I meant is that, no, c'est pas grave. In general, when we have in mind to change something in an area, or whether an area or in a set of mind, you know, we meet people who are against what we're doing, who want to keep things the way they are. So what are the skills necessary for us peacemakers, according to you, to be able to overcome this resistance? Thank you.
It's a very important question and very, very complex. Situations are so different. Yes, all right. Can you hear me? It's a complex question. And situations are so different. And sitting here on a stage, we can't imagine really the situation you're referring to, except we in the IofC believe that wherever we placed, we have a mission. And that if we imbibe these values and get people around us to share those values and start, remember this movement didn't start in a conference hall. It started in homes. And people gathered in Oxford, friends, they shared this vision. And they believed that they could change the world. They were not even thinking about the UK or America, they were thinking about the world. And so wherever we are and whatever our circumstances, we are made in a context. And if we have a sense that we are on the right, then we also should have a sense that we are in the majority already, that right will prevail, even if there's many, many struggles to get there. Desmond Tutu came to the university in Liverpool, came to our university to open a building, and he said to us something I won't forget. He said, why is it that all the statues to those who dominated others eventually get pulled down? They may be there for a century or two, but they will be pulled down. Injustice will not last. It may last a long time, but it will fail. Justice will prevail. I never thought I'll see South Africa democratic in my lifetime. Nobody believed that. But it happened. The walls in Berlin were pulled down. It happened. So what can I say amidst these difficult situations? Be patient, be faithful, and don't give up hope. Hope is what feeds us.
Peut-être aussi par rapport à votre question.
Maybe regarding your question, often the same people. And these are always the same people who don't want anything to change. The problem is that we're always on the same path. But if it's always the same, nothing is going to change. So we have to try and open other doors, do it in an intelligent way which is respectful towards other people, not throw the baby out with the bathwater. We are living in a world where things are happening a lot quicker, and we must continue to question things. So that's the first thing. Secondly, we must always try and look at the objectives and the results that we want and ask ourselves, why are we doing things if they are not working? And if they're not working, we should then look at how we can change our ways. So we must always put this back into question. And then the third thing is that we should always give arguments. We are always in big discussions, but when you present arguments, it's actually difficult for people to say no to you when your arguments are objectively right. So we have to try and believe that there is a collective intelligence.
We have one last question and we must stop. Please state your name and the question to whom is directed.
Thank you so much for the panelists. My name is Amer Manyok Deng. I'm from South Sudan. And I'm a chairperson of Women Bloc of South Sudan. We are women rights activists. I am confused because since I came here, the environment, the presentation, the ideas of change are really touching me. And I don't know, for South Sudan, we have struggled since 1955, 1983, 2013 among ourselves, and up to now, there is no peace. There is no real peace. There is no just peace in our country. So, with such initiative of change, how best can you take it to our leaders to sit down with you, like the way you are sitting, and come up with those beautiful ideas, and so that they can understand how can they change, because we are not able to change them. Yeah. Also, when some of them attended several conferences, meetings across the world, they travel all over the world. Even myself, I traveled to US, to China, and here, I feel like when I go to South Sudan, I must change something. But when I go there, I get a lot of resilience. It becomes very, very difficult. So with them, when they come here, they just copy such a beautiful building, and one person wants to grab all the money from the government and build it, and they cannot make it. So how can we change that scenario? And in our country, we have a lot of resources, and we are not benefiting from it. And generations have suffered, generation after generation, and we cannot wait for that period of time you are talking about, because we have suffered enough. We need to change. Next year, there is election in our country, and we are wondering how are we going to handle it. So if you can rescue us, we will appreciate. Thank you so much for listening.
All right. Okay. So, there we are. The answer rests, I believe, in you and your people, because it is from you that those changes will happen amongst the ones where the conflict exists. And oftentimes, it's as simple as a story. And now this is a marketing strategy, if you want to call it that, because what gets us into war are stories. What can get us out of war is stories. What creates a foundation of conflict with another people is practicing disconnection to the individual. So if you don't have the opposite of love is found in the way in which we have relationship with other people. And so I always go back to that point. And we have great leaders in existence who have lived and who have demonstrated that by reaching out into the hearts of other people, sharing their stories, reframing the story that you're surrounded by, can help make those changes. And it's a real effort. It's not just an imagined or kind story of how we can address these things. It's a practice, and it just takes time. And I'll give the time over to you.
Moi d'abord, bravo Madame pour...
First of all, thank you very much, and hats off to you for the fight that you are leading. I think that after that it's for the heads of states and the governments to create international meetups. But what we said earlier on the fact that societies are generally in advance of their leaders, it's a question of education, and I think that today we should hugely invest in education in the majority of countries around the world, because more people are educated, the more people are independent of their leaders who are not thinking of their people. And I think that it's an essential question. We can see this even amongst terrorist groups who take advantage of the fact that people are young and they can be influenced. It's because people don't have access to education, and I think that this should be a priority. And we even have this same problem in our country, in France, because we see that people who are educated are people who take things into their own hand. So I think this absolutely needs to be a solution, and this is how people are able to get out of dictatorships through education. Thank you.
We are pressed on time. This is the word you heard all the time. I want to end, before I thank the speakers, I want to end on a positive note. Assad and lady from South Sudan and the rest of us, knowing the world is still wounding, the systemic is still wounding us. So, but just remember, this is the words from Ilya Prigogine. She is Nobel Chemistry winning lady. And she was saying that in a sea of chaos, small islands of coherence can have the capacity to transform the world. So let's keep that in mind. Let's all come together and form that sea, the small islands of coherence in such a sea of chaos. On that note, I want to thank our speakers for the gifts of their offering, and I want to thank you for your engagement, and also our interpreters who are the unsung heroes in this room. Thank you very much.
Please be seated. There are a few announcements to be made. Let us also give a round of applause to Professor Sheto for the wonderful work. Well, there are a few announcements as we finish our second plenary. So after this, we will be starting the community groups. So this announcement is for everyone to go to your respective community group. Those who still have not received a community group, you can proceed to the reception. There will be Aparna, Peno, or someone from the community group team to assist you with the team allocations. And also, there could be community leaders who do not know the respective location, so please proceed to the reception. We are there to help. And a special announcement is also for the French-speaking community group. Please proceed to the reception as well. And there is also a special announcement for workshop leaders. All the workshop leaders will be meeting at 12:15 p.m. today in 300D. All the workshop leaders to meet at 12:15 today in the room 300D. And also the workshop Work in Refugee Shoes will be starting today at 2:45 p.m., not at 5 p.m. Work in Refugee Shoes will be starting at 2:45 p.m. May I have your attention, please? There are a few special announcements to be made. And there will be a yarning circle happening today from 8 p.m. here in the main hall. The yarning circle